I'm Scott Allen Miller. It's the 1st of September, 2023. This is my vlog of daily life living in Nicaragua. Today, we're going to be talking about the new release of the GoPro 12 and why I just bought one on release morning. We're also going to be talking about the joys of having security 24/7 when you're living here in Nicaragua. We're going to get to all that right after the bump. The filming location that I wanted to use this morning was a field that I discovered was newly planted and had sprouts coming up everywhere. So I'm avoiding that. So I looked for another great location, and this one is beautiful and I'm in the shade and it's kind of comfortable, but I gotta be honest, there are so many bugs. You can kind of see the high grass all around me and it is wild. So there are just flies and stuff. I'm sure you can see them all over me. So we're gonna see how long I can hold out with this, but I love this location. Got this great tree, got this great tree, got this flare. And you can see the extinct volcano Cerro de Oro there in the background. So it's a great location. I think this is gonna look beautiful, but yeah. So we're filming on the GoPro 11 today. And I'm recording this actually on the morning that the GoPro 12 was released. We had some news about it. If you watch all the stuff on my channel, especially the shorts, you know that I saw some pre-release information and said, well, the GoPro 12 is probably not going to be for me because it's essentially the GoPro 11 we knew HDR was coming, but that was about it. And it was like, as the reviewers said from the pre-release, because they didn't get to turn it on, they don't have all the information, that it just was lackluster and didn't have things that really made a lot of sense. But this morning that I'm filming this, which is the 6th, I watched the release information, watched the announce information, and then ordered a GoPro 12. So why? What are the features and what makes sense for me? What drove me to do that? So that's where we're going to start off with. We're going to talk about security stuff in a second portion, probably after I move, because the flies are nuts. All right. So first of all, the GoPro 11, which I'm on right now, is a fantastic camera. I love it a lot. I'm very happy with it and absolutely happy that I purchased one. I got it a year ago this week, pretty much right at release, a little bit after, and I am a member of GoPro. So I pay an annual fee. I get access to a lot of things that I recommend a lot, and that also gives me a discount on the cameras. If you're gonna get into the GoPro world, you want to be on the GoPro Cloud plan. It just makes sense. If you're not interested in having that plan, then I would probably recommend steering clear of GoPro. The two go together at this point. They've made the cost of their cameras, the cost of all their equipment so much better if you're a member of that, and it comes with some killer features like the ability to store your videos, raw footage online. It's really hard to justify not having it. But of course, you may just be like, well, I want to buy one camera. I don't want to be tied in. I don't want to deal with any of that stuff. That's fine. For people like me who use this all the time, I'm heavily invested in GoPro. I just ordered my 6th camera. I've had the 4, 5, 2 9s, and an 11. Now I have the 12. That's my 6th one. I am not slowing down. I will certainly be getting either the 13 or the 14. There's very little chance that I will not. So for people like me, being invested with all kinds of attachments and lenses and media kits, I've got a lot in on GoPro and I'm sticking with it for the time being. But if that's not something you're interested in, then certainly look at Insta360 or DJI, who have very excellent cameras as well. Both of them have 1-inch sensors, which GoPro does not. Both have some features that GoPro is lacking. Both have cameras in other genres that GoPro does not have. So there's lots of reasons to be looking at them, and both of them are excellent. A lot of people are saying that the DJI Action 4 outperforms the image quality of the GoPro 11, which means it will outperform the 12 as well. So that's a serious consideration. And the Insta360 One is a bit older, but also has some really amazing image capabilities and some flexibilities that GoPro does not have. And that's not a 360 cam, that's an action cam. Their 360 cam, the X3, could work instead of an action cam as well. Also worth your consideration. So think about what you may want to look at. The GoPro is not a given. If you're going to do GoPro, I can't state enough, their cloud program and getting all in with them, absolutely worth it. We'll do a video about that in the future. I did one years ago when it first came out because I'm an early adopter of the GoPro Cloud as well. absolutely thrilled with that and all the things that it provides, and that video did extremely well for us here on the channel, helped jumpstart us quite a bit in the days before coming to Nicaragua, and in the years since. I am happier now with that program than I was 2 years ago when I first got it. So I got it when the 9 just came out. I kept it through the 10 era, which I never got a 10, but I got a second 9 through the 11 era, and now into the 12 era. So I've actually had it, I believe, for 3 years now that I say it out loud, and very, very happy. Okay. So the GoPro 11, being such a great camera, what did they do when they moved to the 12? Well, first of all, we're essentially looking at the same camera. This is important when you're looking at the sensor, the processor, the lens, anything, any physical aspect of the camera, as far as we can tell, is exactly the same. I'm sure it is not exactly the same, but it is extremely close. All of the specs, all of the hardware that is listed is the same. And this is what led early reviewers to say, well, it's basically not an upgrade, so you may want to think about skipping this one. And certainly you might want to. In fact, I would say they are right. The majority of people are going to want to. If you have a 9, 10, or 12, the 13, or I'm sorry, a 9, 10, or 11, the 12 is one to skip, or at least seriously considering it. For me, I have a number of things that make it a heavy consideration. One is that I am all in on GoPro, and I wear through the cameras relatively quickly. My 9 has taken quite a beating and is showing its age. Now, I said that a year ago, and it's held out, and I still use it all the time, so that's great. But it is, it's having problems with its buttons being pushed, it's having problems with the audio. Lots of issues are cropping up with it, so it's showing that the wear and tear is taking a toll on it, but that's fine. 3 years of heavy, well, 2 years in its case, of heavy use, it deserves to fall apart. My 11 is holding up great for the most part. There are a few times that humidity are getting underneath some of the components, but nothing has been problematic. The 12 offers the same as the 11, but the thing that they're saying is that there's a new battery management system. Now, whether that is completely in software or if that has hardware components has not been said. I suspect it is actually a hardware upgrade, but I do not know. It is possible it is purely firmware being applied to the 12 that's not available for the 11, in which case that's a bit sad that they did that, but it does imply that there's huge profit margins on the GoPro 12 and that they have a really good chance of having a major overhaul for the 13. Of course, they may just take those profits and run, but I suspect they're going to use that as a major development cycle. Clearly, this development cycle is keeping manufacturing costs back to allow them to acquire quite a bit more profitability. Not that they're not profitable, but this is a huge boost. If the 12 does well, then it gives a lot of hope for what they're going to do with the 13. And the things that we've been talking about that we thought were going to come into the 12, like moving to a 1-inch sensor, maybe that will happen with the 13 or some other means of boosting low light performance. The reason that everyone says that they want the bigger sensor is for low light. However, that does come with penalties, and penalties that may not make sense for a GoPro. So it's very possible that what we would like to see is some manner of getting better low light performance without growing the sensor. That's very hard to do. It is common to use larger sensors to tackle that, and larger sensors will always have an advantage in that case, but larger sensors mean bigger lenses and bigger housings, and they come with a lot of negatives. They also come with slower readouts. So GoPro on the smaller sensor has an advantage against its two main competitors in that it has the potential for faster readouts and better highlight performance. Low light, yes, it's going to suffer, but that's not what it's built for. So that I don't have amazing low light performance on my GoPro. While I'd prefer to have it than not, overall the trade-offs might not be worth it. So I'm sticking to being pretty happy with the current sensor in the GoPro. It is absolutely brilliant, as you can see here. For low light, I have other cameras for that, such as the Sony ZV-1, which does a much better job with a much bigger sensor and a moderately bigger sensor and a much faster lens to handle low light situations in a different way. And that, for me, will work just fine. Okay, so the new battery management system is probably the absolute killer feature on the camera. What they're claiming is up to, now we don't know how much that's going to apply, but up to 100% improved battery performance, meaning if you get 1 hour of runtime on a current battery, you're going to get 2 hours on the new one. That means two things. One is that our batteries are going to last longer. That's simple, obvious. But it also means we need fewer batteries, of course, but it also means the camera won't overheat as much because it is the using of the battery that causes the overheating, along with being in direct sunlight. They did not give me a white version of the camera. What are you doing, GoPro? I told you it needed to be white. Okay, but The longer battery life means it's going to generate less heat, which in turn gives it longer battery life. That's one of the means that it will get longer battery life, by not being as hot. And so this, for those of us who are in high heat environments and need to deal with overheating batteries and cameras all of the time, anything like this is a huge win. I am most of the time not able to keep running because I'm overheating, not because my battery's running out. Now, I'm a little bit unfair. I shoot almost continuously at 5.3K, so I'm pushing the sensor and the processor to their limit for everything that I do, and that causes me to use more battery faster and heat up the camera a lot faster than other modes. If I was shooting at 4K 24p or 1080p 24p, I would get much more time before the camera overheated. But because I'm shooting that faster frame rate at 30 to give you guys a smoother image quality, and because I'm shooting at that 5.3K to give us the best possible light performance and just total image quality, we generate heat faster, and we do go through the battery faster, but that's rarely the limiting factor because of the way I use it. Hopefully, with my use characteristics and this new battery saving feature, we're going to get a lot more out of our GoPros in the near future. So fingers crossed that that is going to be the killer feature that it seems like. But for me, this is the one that made it economically make sense, because I went this morning to order new batteries. I have a trip coming up. I'm taking 2 GoPros with me. I need to take a lot of batteries. I'm going to be shooting very heavily, including for this channel and for Drive Warp, especially for Drive Warp. And I really need to be prepared. So I went to order 2 new batteries. Well, 2 new batteries cost around about $50 for the GoPro, which is not killer. But when I went to order, and then I saw the GoPro 12 announcement and watched that and realized that the camera comes with 1 battery included, and getting, in order to get my discounts on things, I need to order over $100. Well, I didn't need to order that many batteries. So I was not going to get my discount or free shipping if I ordered just batteries. But if I got the GoPro 12 and a battery, I would get 1 battery for free, the other one at my heavy discount, and it would be with free shipping. So yes, that did not offset the cost of the camera by that much, but it did save me straight up $20 right off the cost of the camera by a battery I didn't need to buy, and $15 off the other battery, which I got as a discount because of it. So I had a total savings of $35. That is 15% off the cost of the camera just before I started. So my GoPro 12, which cost me $299 because of my membership, was automatically knocked down to two. You have to do the math. Anyway, 15% taken right off, right from the beginning, $45 off. So $256 right from the start. $254. Man, my math is terrible today. $254 is effectively what I paid for the camera from the starting point. And for $254 to have a third camera when my other 2 are both already being used so heavily and wearing out is not a bad thing. Even if they keep working, I switch cameras throughout the day. Having a third camera to grab and go run and use while the others are uploading, cooling down, whatever, is an actual benefit. It's not huge. I was not going to spend $200 on that, but is it worth another $50? Easily. So that's another benefit. But protecting against one of the cameras completely dying, also worth something. So I have more things. Then for the rest of the year, I normally make multiple battery purchases throughout the year. So this was my fall purchase. I normally make a winter one and a summer one. So each of those is about another $50. If this truly gives me so much more battery life and so much less wear and tear on the batteries, it easily is going to save me between $50 and $100 throughout just this first year in batteries. So assume the total cost of the camera just came down to $200, but I won't realize some of that for another 6 to 12 months. Great, now it's getting to be a really good value, and it starts to make a lot more sense. Because the GoPro 12 has other features and just protects against things, and to some degree, I just want to get a new camera, and I'm hoping it's going to generate some traffic for this site that people interested in the 12 will be able to come and see lots of footage from it. It may easily pay for itself. So that was my logic, and as my wife said, you're doing, and my kids are like, yes, we concur, that is what's happening. I'm doing girl math, as that's a term for it, right? For justifying the cost of this camera. I understand I spent money on the camera I didn't need to spend, but I think I got a really good deal on a camera that, no, it was not at the top of my list to get, but it was budgeted for, and I was prepared for it, and I did make it as cost-effective as possible, so my total expenditure on it in real terms came out to about $200. For those who don't know, I budget for cameras throughout the year, and my show budget for these cameras, right? I have cameras that I use for other things. I have other projects and whatever. For the show, I use the GoPros and the Insta360s, and those I maintain a budget for. Not a real strict budget, but I have a mental preparation budget at the very minimum. And in my budget for this fall was to purchase the expected DJI Pocket 3 camera. That is the built-in gimbal 1-inch sensor camera that we were expecting DJI to bring out first in the spring and then in the fall. And in both cases, they simply ignored their audience and didn't bring it out. So I had a budget set aside in my mind for that camera. It is not coming out. There's no expectation now that it'll be released this year, possibly ever. They may have discontinued the line. And so because of that, getting the GoPro 12 didn't require a new budget. I'm simply committing the budget I already had for the DJI Pocket 3, using half of it for this, and half of it will be returned to my mental pool to be used for something in the future. So that worked out really well from that perspective. So part of this was I was taking an opportunity to spend some of the budget I had set aside for something that didn't come to fruition. Whew, that was a lot, but the battery portion is what made me able to justify the camera at this particular point in time. If I was to buy it later, say in 6 months, I would already have bought these batteries and would not have gotten the discount or would not have gotten the batteries that I needed, whatever. So this was the moment to do that and realize that benefit as best for me. Getting the camera on release day, which I did. This was release morning that I ordered it, and I ordered the expedited shipping. So I'm getting it as soon as anyone will get this camera, except for the pre-release reviewers, because the camera officially only releases on September 13th. So we're quite a bit away from when the actual camera will be put in a box and shipped. By getting it on release day, there's a potential that my footage is going to be useful for people who are researching the GoPro 12. If I did it in 6 months, all people who are looking for that would already have established footage, and it wouldn't be beneficial in that way. So it's important for people who are doing stuff like I am to get it right on release day. So that's one of the reasons. One of the features that I'm really excited about on the GoPro 12 that's not listed anywhere as far as I can tell is that it has a tripod mount. We know from third-party attachments available for the GoPro 11 that you can turn it over, remove the feet that are on the bottom that come with it, and replace them with a set of feet that have a tripod mount in the middle. We were hoping that GoPro would see this and take it to heart, and they did. They have added, but they've not announced. But when they turn the camera in some of the video shots, you can see it on the bottom that there is a screw mount. So traditional quick releases and traditional tripods are able to be used, and all the accessories that you already have for everything else are able to be used with the GoPro 12 without any modifications or extra expense. So that's really nice. Not a killer feature, not something I would specifically pay for, or I would have added it to my other cameras, but it is something that I'm very happy about. And it makes it really easy to add magnetic mounts and other things that are more universal. The big technological features on this camera are primarily around, and we mentioned this a year ago when I said things I wanted for the 11 and they didn't come. Here they are in the 12. So GoPro did listen to me, but it was one cycle later than I was hoping. The first is that we're getting HDR, both photos and video. Photos we don't tend to care about very much with the GoPro, but maybe you do. And once in a while, I do photos with my GoPro, and I am a member of the Flickr GoPro photo group, so I participate in stuff. Having HDR for that will be a benefit, but having HDR for the video is where it's really important for me. And what this is high dynamic range. That means we're using a larger amount of image sensor data and creating an image in a larger dynamic range set. So instead of 702, Rec 702 color space, we're using something like 2020. I don't know the specs of what GoPro is going to use, so I can't say which one is specifically going to be doing. I'm hoping it's HLG, so it matches my iPhone and the Sony and works automatically with the with Final Cut Pro, but we will see. I suspect that it will be that, but who knows? With that, we have an opportunity to get better, brighter images. For some of you who have noticed, especially on my shorts, sometimes, and someone said this recently, did I just watch one of your video and my screen got brighter? Yes, that is an HDR video that's been uploaded to YouTube using the 2020 color space, and that actually allows the screen to go brighter. I'm not quite sure why they do it that way. You could make other things do that too, through like settings, but it actually allows for brighter images and more color space, and it makes for a better looking image in many cases. So we're hoping when we're shooting completely on the new GoPro 12, we're mixing it with the new Sony ZV-1, that being in that larger dynamic range space, we'll be able to provide actually better looking images. Even though it's the same sensor and everything else, it's going to be able to provide a better image from that. So I'm looking forward to having that upgrade, although it's going to make our workflow quite a bit more complicated for editing. It does potentially give us much better image quality. And as we start doing it all the time, instead instead of just occasionally like I do now with my iPhone. And I should say it also allows my iPhone footage to be blended in as well. I have an iPhone 13, which naturally does HDR with HLG style HDR, and that matches everything as well. So I'm very excited about that, and I was very clear with the back in the 10 era that that's what I was looking for in the 11. So here we are, and I finally got it. The other thing that I asked for is a log format. The GoPro Hero 12 is the first GoPro with the new GP log format, and that works as an alternative to the HDR, and it gives a really flat profile that is designed for you to just take more or less, it's not raw, it's not actually completely direct sensor data, but it's really close to direct sensor data, and then allows you to do color grading with that after the fact and get a much more flexible image or video that we can then play with and modify if we're going to apply color LUTs or do our own color gradation or whatever. When we're using straight HDR, that's really meant for just improving the overall image quality, but not specifically for the purpose of flexibility. Using the GP log format is to get that plus a flexibility to modify the image color, which I'm sure we will do from time to time as well. Especially now having that, it will make it so much more powerful. Previously, when using the GoPro, we had to use the flat profile, which is not a log, it is simply flat. The log is basically a flat profile taken to another level with the high dynamic range added in. So I'm very excited about these being added. Now, I'm a little bit upset that they're adding them as a feature and it is purely a firmware upgrade. There is, to the best of my knowledge, because of the identical hardware under the hood, no reason that this firmware could not have been made available to the GoPro 11 users. So I have a camera that's clearly capable of it, but they're not giving me that feature. That I don't like. But these are really good upgrades for the 12 and ones that we will use quite a bit. Also, in the same vein, just a firmware update, they're moving from Hypersmooth 5 to Hypersmooth 6. This is supposed to be a relatively decent upgrade to the image stabilization system, with one of the cool features is the new boost, where it allows the camera to actually crop in at times that the image becomes wildly unstable, and then crop out again as soon as, or uncrop, as soon as it stabilizes physically, so it doesn't need as much crop to keep it stable. This allows for some like jogging footage to be much more stable than you could do with Hypersmooth 5. And yes, you get a little automatic crop, but that crop is generally not bad. You barely notice compared to a shaky image. So that's a cool feature. I don't know how much that will affect my viewers, but it might, right? And it's especially good for things like drive warp, where sometimes we bounce around. We use that Hypersmooth a lot for that. But when I'm out and walking, and like right now, all of my image stabilization is turned off because I'm on a tripod. But when I'm out and walking, I turn it on and I use a lot of those features. And so moving up one level in that, you may notice, or maybe not notice, but it will be perceivable that the image is a little bit better because the stabilization will be just that much enhanced. Supposedly, the new boost feature uses 4 times the data of Hypersmooth 5 in order to stabilize the image. So we'll have to see how it works side by side, but it does sound like it's a real upgrade. Whether it's worth any amount of money or just a nice to have upgrade, we will have to see in the future. As far as audio goes, one of the neat new features of the GoPro 12 is that it has a Bluetooth attached audio. This means you can do things like use a Bluetooth microphone or earbuds that are Bluetooth, attach them to your GoPro and record using those. Right now I'm using a boom mic, sometimes I use a lavalier. Having wireless microphones as an option is fantastic. I don't really need this personally because I have the Rode Wireless Go 2 system that allows me to do all of that with any device using a standard set of professional microphones. I don't need to be using earbuds in order to do that, and I think that that's a bit better and more flexible. But in some cases, that's a lot more equipment to use and more things to charge, and I don't really have like Apple EarPods, so using what I have would not be the highest quality, and it's just not an ecosystem that I'm heavily participant in. But for a lot of people, that's a really good feature, and it's nice to know that we have it as an option. But it's a cool upgrade and does use hardware that I don't believe was in the camera before, so that's a little tiny bit that I think they've added. Now, as far as adding things, there is a new lens mod. The Max mod was available from several cameras ago. That allowed you to add an aftermarket, but a primary party lens addition to the GoPro that gives you a wider field of view. In the past, I've not done that because it makes some modifications to the way the sensor is used and lowers the image quality in ways that I just don't need. It basically makes it behave a lot more like a 360 camera, and a lot of people were hopeful that that meant there was a 360 version of the camera coming that never ended up coming to fruition. The new one gives you a 177-degree field of view, so it's almost directly side to side. It is called the Max Lens Mod 2.0, but importantly, it gives a lot of wider field of view to the GoPro Hero 12 without reducing, as far as I know, without reducing the resolution of the image. So we're able to do some things we weren't able to do before, such as a full 360 at a full 4K. And in some cases, it does reduce things to 4K, depending on what you're using it for, and that's fine because we're really only ever rendering at 4K. Would it be better to get 5.3 and bring it down to 4K? Yes, that is more flexible. Yes, that does have benefits, but as long as we don't reduce from 4K, I consider it a really big upgrade. The old one reduced to 1080p, I believe, or maybe to 2.7K, but it kept it from being natively 4K, which, while still an amazing image, is noticeable on really good screens. So I'm thankful for that. I did not order that. It was not available when I ordered this morning. I assume in the future, at some point when I'm making an order large enough to justify getting it, I will grab that lens mod and play with it. It would be nice because I can have the same settings here and go really wide and give you a completely, twice as big view of where I am, which I could do some now. And so like today, it's not something I would use, but there's a lot of times where I'm like walking around to do stuff that I think it would be beneficial. So I could definitely see that being something, but that is an $80, it's $100 for non-subscribers, $80 for subscribers upgrade to the system. So it's not tiny, but it is a pretty cool feature that it is out there. And it's worth noting that all of those lens mods and things for the 12 are exactly the same as the 11, so they're interchangeable. Like if you have an ND filter that screws on to the 11, you can use that on the 12. They're interchangeable. Physically, they are the same camera. And all of that is why I am ordering the GoPro 12, or have already ordered it and have expedited shipping. It is supposed to release on September 13th, and they say it will ship out before or on the 13th. I have it expedited to go as quickly as possible to a place in Missouri where Paul's going to be picking it up and bringing it back for me just in time for me to get in the car and head to Costa Rica with the family, where hopefully I will be testing it out very heavily before I get on a plane and head to Argentina. So I'm going to be putting it through its paces very quickly, and I have a lot of uses for it, and so fingers crossed we get some truly amazing footage from it. But as you can see, our GoPro 11 is already producing amazing results, and I don't even have it on 10-bit color right now. We're operating on the standard 8. So once we go to 10-bit and HDR and maybe even go to the log, you're going to be like, wow, this is a noticeable upgrade. And when we can do all of our footage in that for episodes, I think you're going to love it. That will probably not happen immediately. It's going to take quite some time before all of that type of footage makes its way into our footage ecosystem, but it will be coming. All right, our second topic for the day, 24/7 security and why I love it. This is our real topic for the day. The first one was for people who are just interested in that stuff. This is our Nicaragua topic. So we recently added 24/7 security to our home, and we don't need it. We live in a very safe spot. We're already in a gated area. We have security at night already, but we didn't have 24/7 security. So why did we make that leap? So first of all, as someone pointed out the other day, we have a larger budget than a lot of people who are coming to Nicaragua. We're multiple people who are actively working and actively investing here in Nicaragua and in the United States and working full-time. We're very, very busy. Plus we have kids and a lot of people because of work who come and go from the house because we have a lot of workers there. Because of that, there's a lot of complications that come just from having the house and the estate and all the things that go on with that. And one of those things that's complicated is that having security is an important thing to let people in, to announce that they're there, to take care of billing and workers and all kinds of things. And when we didn't have security there, it was really a hassle for us. Now, sometimes we would have workers in the house who could deal with some of that stuff, but we're always interrupting someone who's doing maintenance, someone who's cooking or whatever, and asking them to go deal with something at the gate. And so a lot of times we would just end up answering the gate ourselves. We would open and close the door throughout the day. It's a lot. With full-time security, I don't have to carry keys anymore, anytime, day or night. I can just walk up to my gate and someone who knows me is going to verify it's me and let me in. I can also call ahead and have them let other people in. I can do any number of things. There's a lot of convenience that comes with having security all the time. But more than that is the peace of mind. Now, it is expensive. Even here in Nicaragua, you can't do this at the drop of a hat. It's something that's going to take some money. But we already were paying for part-time security, so moving to full-time was not as expensive as it would be just starting from nothing. And wow, did the sun just come out. We're going to have to move positions. My shade options at this time of day are a little bit limited, but I do like how it looks, at least on the little tiny screen. We're gonna see, but I think it's gonna look really good. The GoPro does a really good job with this type of light in a lot of scenarios, but the bugs out here are nuts. So the cost, if you're going from scratch, you are paying nothing, you want to add full-time security, should be a little bit less than $1,400 a month, not a week. $1,400 a month. It's 13 something, but pretty close to 1,400. That's for armed, trained security from a service. They make sure that you have coverage 24/7. One person relieves another. There's always someone there. If someone can't come, the agency fills in with a manager or whatever, supervisor. So that's great. We don't have to manage that. That's something that we're paying for. As far as having our own security, we were able to supplement. So we just offset it, and we're getting it cheaper than that because we're already have a group of people who are paying for some of the security. So we're not having to pay the whole thing. So that makes it make more sense for us. If you're doing this just for a private house, you may not want to do that. We get a lot of convenience. That goes without saying. And it also provides a lot of functions around the house. They provide check-in and check-out, monitor when employees are there or not, and we can tell when employees are staying in the house or are not when we're not even there. So it makes leaving the house for periods of time much easier, because sometimes we want to be able to travel or we're simply working somewhere and we don't want the house to be empty. And often our chef who lives with us is going to be there, or someone else is going to be staying there. Like, that happens a lot. But having a person who is assigned to never leave the house is a big deal. We know no matter who comes and goes, no matter who feels like going out, no matter who is getting lunch, no matter who is running around running errands, there is always someone at the house, and an adult, and honestly an armed adult, right? So that is just a peace of mind that our house always has someone there. It's never vacant. And while things are very secure here, the one crime that does happen a lot is the crime of convenience. If they see that no one is home, they know that there's no one around, eventually just working their way over the wall, popping into a house and seeing what's laying about is something that will happen. If you're completely empty, that's a real risk. But when you have someone there all the time, or you have a house you can completely lock up, you can significantly reduce that risk to almost nothing. So knowing that someone is there watching the house means that we're never worried about the house being unlocked. We're never worried about it being open. We're never worried about being away. There's always someone there paying, when their entire job is to pay attention to who's coming, who's going, and what's going on in the house. And they have full visibility into the house. They can come into the house themselves and inspect around the house, do whatever they need to do. That's huge. And because we have kids, yes, they're teenagers, but we still have kids, having that peace of mind that there's adult eyes watching over them at all times is huge. And it's awake adult eyes. When we have people who live there, there's a point in the night when everyone's asleep. Sure, someone would likely wake up if there's an intruder or even just an animal in the house, but it's not the same as having someone who is awake and always watching over you. And we became a little bit addicted to this when we lived at the beach, because of course our hotel had 24/7 security. And so when I had to move because the camera overheated. So having the security gives us incredible peace of mind, because we have kids who can be home and we never have to worry about there being people awake. We have the dogs. We never have to worry about the gate having been left open and them escaping, or someone not contacting us, or someone being sick, or something being wrong, or someone falling. There's just so many things. And because of being at the hotel, we were so spoiled with that. We learned that having a human watching over, that you knew the bump in the night, someone was investigating. You knew that you could walk out and talk to a person who knew what was going on. You were always receiving the news. If anything important happened, you would have been woken up. That was so fantastic. It was so great having that at the hotel. Of course, we still have that at the hotel. We don't stay there very often, and not having that at the house. But on the nights when we have a person, we're like, this is fantastic. We know there's a person walking back and forth. We know the flashlight watching around. Is someone watching over us? We know if someone comes to the gate in the night, it'll be opened. If we have a guest who's arriving and we've gone to bed, they can be let in. If we're having Pedito's Jaw deliver us food, I don't have to stand out there. Someone will go get them and deliver it to the house. Like, all these things are handled. And it's so nice. And if someone's coming or going, they just open the gate for them. I don't have to have my keys. Like right now, I walked out, I'm out for a walk. When I walk back, I don't have keys. They're going to open the gate for me. That's fantastic, right? Because I will always have things fall out of my pockets. It's a great way to lose my keys. Like, I'm likely to, carrying the key, that's not a problem. It's what I do while I'm out walking and I take things out of my pocket and suddenly I don't have the key anymore. That's my worry all the time. So I'm really happy to have security for all these reasons. And yes, it ups our overall actual security from like an intruder standpoint. That was never really a concern. That's not a big deal. Yes, it's a great peace of mind, but you know, it's easy to read into these things and be like, you guys are spending all this money on security, you must be really scared. Is not at all the case. And you know, right, from me walking around, like I'm not concerned about these things. I do things that people do all the time, but we do have a large estate. We do have a lot to watch over. We have other people's properties. And, you know, part of this is, it's also, you know, the woman who lives across from us, she's a little bit older. She sometimes isn't able to get the gate. There could be something wrong. It's good for her to have someone available should anything go wrong for her as well. She's very happy, right, to have this. It may not be security that's doing things for her. It may not be taking deliveries for her, but to know that someone's there helping protect her, because she lives alone and she definitely has her worries. I'm sure her kids feel much better about everything from that. And just knowing there's someone to talk to her, someone to check in on her, all the time, that's a really big deal. And quite often people would come to the gate and need something, right? Sometimes people would just be dropping off a resume. Someone would just want to ask a question. Having a person who handles all that, that just takes that load off of us. Is that going to be worth $1,400 a month for you? Probably not, but maybe, right? Depending on your income, depending on your needs, depending on your scenario, you may find that having 24/7 security is just brilliant. But you may also find it to be really expensive. If you're living in a gated community with other people and you split the bill, say you have 14 houses, $100 a month, no brainer, do it. Just do it, right? It's fantastic. But, you know, if you're footing the bill all yourself, well, you know, think about it carefully, and we're in the middle. But it's, you know, it really is a level of comfort, a level of luxury in reality that is wonderful. You know, if I didn't have kids, if I didn't have the dogs who were such a problem, you know, I may think of it differently. But because our house is kind of a living place, the estate, right, is this constant moving of visitors who are staying and other kids who stay, and we're used as a hub for going out, that we often take lots of people, and it's kind of, and our kids, you know, they really, as much as they're teenagers, they just don't like being home alone. Knowing that someone is there makes them very happy. They love the fact that, you know, they're never actually alone. That's a big deal for them. They just, you know, they're Americans. They have a lot of that sense of fear that you get from having grown up in the United States. And so even though that's mostly a perception here and not a reality, it is still a thing that adds a lot of comfort and makes it's easier to sleep at night. It's easier to know. And there's just so many things we don't have to deal with, right? You hear something, I don't have to go investigate. Was that a lizard falling off the roof? Was that a tree falling over? Like, that happens. Like, palm fronds just randomly fall off in the middle of the day. That would be really scary at night. I don't have to go investigate that. I know that, when it's star days, I know that someone is out there taking a look at that and dealing with it, and it doesn't have to be me. All of that adds up to, it's just such a level of comfort and relaxation. And it's just fantastic to know that is all handled. So we're very happy with the decision, and we've put in a new security booth, and he's got all kinds of stuff in there. It's like a clipboard and tracks everyone who comes and goes. We have all this information now that we didn't have before, and all this professionalism. Not that our night guy isn't great, but he's just a guy who watches the house at night. Now we have this company that's helping him, and they have all these processes and stuff, and all these checklists. It's fantastic. So we're really happy with that, and just gives you a little piece of, here's what it costs, here's why we do it, and if it's something that, you know, you're concerned about security and you're like, well, the money's not a big deal, but I want that comfort. Hey, here's what it costs. Make your own decisions. Maybe you just want people at night. Maybe you just want people when you're not there. Maybe only when you are there, right? Make your choices. For us, there's just so much going on that 24/7, we never know when we're gonna, and like when we make a border run, like we're about to have to do stuff internationally. I'm about to be away for 2 months, right? That was a point of concern. One of the adults, we just went with Paul gone for 3 months. I'm about to be gone for almost 2 months. You know, there's a lot of that stuff. And like when we're gone and Paul's the only adult officially here, you know, the dogs, he can't go anywhere because the dogs are always alone. So there's just a lot of pieces that come together because of the way we travel and stuff that likely don't apply to you guys, but might. Things to consider. Now you have the information that you need. One last feature on the GoPro 12 that I forgot to mention is, and this is not much of a feature, but they now have some vertical framing options built into their settings. Previously, they expected you to turn the camera physically if you wanted to do recordings on a vertical. So it had all the capability to do it, but it wasn't quite as convenient. And it's unnecessary given the sensor that it has. So because they now had some time with the new sensor. They figured out that they can do software to do vertical framing, horizontal framing, or do full framing, and then later you can edit whichever one you want. You may say, why wouldn't you just always do that? It's because the file sizes are much larger and you use more battery, generate more heat, and your file sizes are larger, which makes it harder to edit later, and you have to frame it yourself at the editing time. If I want to frame everything and then hand it to my editor, Liesel, or I want to automatically upload it without editing at all, I need to be able to frame in camera. So it gives me that power, which is just a software setting. So it's not a big deal. It's probably the most minor of all the things, but it is nice that they did it. It's a smart feature to have, and I'd forgotten to mention it. So that is there if you're doing a lot of mixed media where you're doing vertical and horizontal images. Having those flexibilities to pre-frame or to grab full frame and frame later are fantastic. And that's a little something, that leaf that they took out of the notebook from the 360 cameras, where you film absolutely everything and then you frame a 1080p image after the fact. This allows you to not see everything, but see a lot of stuff in front of the camera and frame a 4K vertical or horizontal after the fact or before the fact without having to move the camera, which if you're on like a tripod or something like I use, like I have this tripod slash handle, doing vertical with this is really awkward because of the way you'd have to hold it, and you can't use it as a tripod that way unless you get adapters. So this allows you in software to do all that, so I never have to move the camera, which is what the Insta360 Go 3, which is a similar physical form factor to the GoPro, already does. So they learned from them that that's a feature they needed to build in. But here it's 4K, whereas with the Go 3 is only 2.7K, so this is a nice upgrade. That's us for today. My goal today is that I'm gonna get these uploading and hand this over to Liesel to edit, because we are in the home stretch for a massive amount of travel, and I need her to be doing an unbelievable amount of editing while I'm gone. We're gonna be talking about how we're gonna do that and getting a process going. I've already started placing orders for new equipment. I'm getting a 2 terabyte additional drive, so I'm gonna be carrying 3 terabytes of storage with me. I'm gonna be doing everything I can to clear it off as fast as I can, but that's gonna be really hard to do while I'm traveling. So I'm anticipating coming back with like 3 terabytes of footage that hasn't uploaded yet. I'm going to be going to Costa Rica with an extra 1 terabyte, and everything I'm unable to upload from Costa Rica is going to be put onto a 1 terabyte drive and sent back with Liesel so that she has it to put in storage while I'm working. So that's 1 week of our travel that I will not be having to deal with in that 3 terabytes. So I'm trying to like stage how prepared I am. There's so many moving parts to such a long trip, and I have to travel so lightly. And I'm thinking about how cold it's going to be, because it's going to be like early spring in the mountains. I'm used to year-round summer by the shore. I'm in for quite a temperature shock, I have a feeling, pretty much the whole time we're gone. But the nice thing is, I'm not gonna get sweaty. I can buy some hats. And we're gonna be in a car almost the whole time, so I have a lot of time to just have things sprawling. But when I get my flight home, I gotta be really tightly packed. So it's all now. The GoPro 12, I should say, it is being sent to Missouri on the 13th. Paul has to get it by the 17th. That is an incredibly tight window for it to ship and arrive. And if anything goes wrong, we're not going to have it. So fingers crossed that we actually manage to get it. There is a lot to go wrong, but we're going to give it the old college try. And if we don't get it by then, we'll ship it to Houston, and I'll get it around Christmas, which is not ideal. But I'm pretty much coming straight back from the trip, decompressing, editing what we have, and heading right off to Christmas in the US. So tons of travel. At this point, the majority of the remainder of the year, I'm not in Nicaragua. You're gonna see a lot of footage from Nicaragua yet, but I'm gonna be out of the country more than 50% of the remaining part of the year, which is hard to believe at this point. I've done so little travel in so long. The fact that I'm doing so much travel coming up so quickly is kind of, I'm not really mentally prepared. Thanks for joining me. Like and subscribe. Ask your questions, scroll down below, do all that stuff. If you want to contact us, info@relocatenicaragua.com. Feel free to shoot me an email there. That is me. That's not some random person. A lot of people are like, I couldn't find an email address for you, so I sent it here. That comes to me. And share with your friends, post on social media, let people know about the show, and I will see all of you tomorrow.